Welcome again, surfers. This one from December 17th through the 23rd. There's a lot going on everywhere, and the collective unconscious is a disaster. The astrology is all over the place, and the I-Ching says patience. So we've got an interesting week. I'm excited to bring it to you. I'm bringing it a little bit early so I can get it done before the client session. So I don't have any room for error. If I make an error, we're just going with it. So there you have it. All right, here's your summary slide for today. It's, as you can see, oh, you know what? I forgot my pointer. Let's do that really quick. Oh, we don't need that yet. So what we're doing for the new folks is we're looking for overlap. Our goal is to give you the main influence. I'm going to show you a lot of different influences, but we're looking for the overlap. As you can see, the purple, the green, all these circles, and they find a center point, and that center point appears to be pointing to some sort of shock and awe, maybe speechless, or just nothing else. It might be sort of a saturation, like I'm overwhelmed and all I can do is just give up and observe. That's kind of, looking at the wrong camera. That's the overlap here. So we're going to go through day by the Tropical Astrology, and that's really interesting. You have 4 planetary changes going into different signs. You have Mars that has 2 squares. You have Uranus with 3 squares. You have Uranus with 2 trines, the Sun and Mercury. And you have the infamous Christmas star. And we're going to talk all about that. It's all over the place, and it's very chaotic. Then you have the I-Ching that says hexagram 5. It says patience. That's kind of like out here. I'm thinking, I don't see a lot of patience in the astrology, but it is there with like particularly all the planets going. And you know what? I think that the I-Ching, if it's connected with this astrology, is pointing to that last notion that I identified earlier, which is like total chaos in the sky. And it's like overwhelming. And I just surrender to it all and just kind of be for a while and let the dust settle. That's kind of where I think the I-Ching is playing out. But as you can see, all these change lines, that indicates that there's another energy as our solution. For the new folks, we do this same process. We call this triangulation. We do the triangulation process for the solution. So we give you the influence and then the solution. And of course, we use the collective unconscious. That's the green circle. And it's nothing short of shock and awe. So with that, let's go ahead and get started in the Dreambot first. And welcome to the channel. Things might be a little bit confusing, so we have a beginner's video down below, or you can go to the National Dream Center page where you've got like an introduction that explains some of these things. It is sort of dated. And then also I have some links down below that I'm going to be referring to help you out. But the Dreambot is the collective unconscious. It's people's dreams. And let's zoom in. The blue arrows, freezing. Let's see so freezing, upset, broken, and cold. This is the fight or flight response. This is I'm so shocked I can't move kind of a thing. That's the shock. And then with all these red arrows, it's fleeing, drones, artificial, bunker, nuclear, temple, sound, rooms, border, crowd, walking, underground. So it's like it has like a secretive sort of feel to it, an underground feel. But then in these segmented reds is the opposite: upstairs, stands, looks, asking questions, open. So it's like these secrets are revealed, or what was down in the dungeons is now out in the open for people to see. So that's why I'm thinking the collective is going towards shock and awe. Now let's get into the astrology. And, there's a lot of shock and awe in the astrology too. We've been talking about Saturn and Jupiter heading into Aquarius. Those are two planets going in together, basically, hand in hand, and that will become our Christmas star later on in the week. And then you have Mercury heading into Capricorn. You have the Sun going into Capricorn. Those two are headed in together. And so the big question is, do we have the combustion Kazemi thing going on? We're going to answer that this week. And then our squares. Well, tons of squares, and they only build from now until kind of its climax is January 20th. Just happens to be Inauguration Day. And that finally subsides out into February, just to give you an overview. All right, so Thursday, here's what we see. Well, I warned you, some growing number of squares. Squares, again, for those of you who don't know, is can be conflicted. It's a 90-degree position from one planet to another, and in ancient astrology, it's said to be conflicted. It's the energy doesn't flow very well. It's not necessarily a bad thing, because it can be a really strong influence in a natal chart of pressure, because the energy wants to pass through those planets, but it has a hard time doing so. So you have, for example, you've got Uranus square all these, square Moon, Saturn, Jupiter, Pluto. And Uranus, the planet of change, has always been in Taurus for maybe a year or two. I can't remember. And this is the eccentric planet. Just want to be free, independence. And let me get my pointer out so you can see a little bit better. But and then square over to your emotional complex. That's the Moon. And Saturn, that's the status quo, security. Saturn just headed up over into Aquarius. We'll cover that, what that means. And Jupiter is the wisdom, the wise, optimistic. Also loves to be free and wild roaming, and then philosophical. And then you've got Pluto, which is the inner power, but the planet of transformation and deep transformation. Sometimes you don't even know you're transforming. That's the hidden power of Pluto. And Pluto's going to hang out in Capricorn as Jupiter holds hands with Saturn going into Aquarius. Aquarius being sort of a paradoxical sign. They all the zodiac signs sort of have a somewhat of a paradox, and the one for Aquarius is very freedom, individual, unique. However, at the same time, looking out for collective good. So wants to see the collective getting along, wants to see the collective progressing, and the old archetype of Aquarius with the water bearer. It is an air sign, but he carries water, and when he pours that out to humanity, it's in the form of knowledge. And that could be what's happening here, is sort of the release of what has always been, especially, well, that's the Saturn aspect, but Jupiter coming in with Saturn gives it an optimistic freedom edge to it. Saturn wants to not change anything. Saturn wants safety and security and policing and all that, all the same. But it is now Aquarius, so it's more built on freedom, uniqueness, all of our, it's a very mental construct as well. All the air signs are very mental, logical, and things should make sense to the Aquarian. And then when Jupiter comes in there with Saturn, we're looking at a very positive, freedom-oriented, unique set of status quo for the foreseeable future. Saturn's going to be in Aquarius until I think March of 2023, because there's a couple of retrogrades. Jupiter will be in Aquarius for most of the year, although it's going to touch into Pisces for a while and then retrograde back into Aquarius. And then he'll be free, I think, at the end of 2021, I believe. So anyway, lots of squares, lots of pressure, lots of conflict. This, just to highlight, especially for those of you who haven't been here for a while, Mars has multiple squares with Pluto. That's your inner power versus your outer yang power, ability to get things done. That's pressured. So that feels like, boy, I need to be doing something, but I don't know what. Or I know exactly what I need to be doing, but I can't. That's that sort of thing. There's a mismatch between the inner power and the outer power, if that makes any sense. Venus, you did have quite a bit of opportunity there, and this is basically your last day. Again, December 17th, it's a Thursday. All these times are standard Central Time. And Black Moon Lilith, always want to be looking at that, where she's at. Now, Friday, the 18th, there's some important news that I want you to read here. I'm going to zoom in so that you can read it, and I'll get rid of this. And it basically has to do with, it's going to blow the mind of every citizen of the country. All right. Now there's some tags here that may not take place. I'm not predicting anything, but I wanted to show this because that's on the 18th. That's expected to come out on the 18th. And let me zoom back out. Now I want to explain it from an astrology standpoint. What is going on here? Well, I'm proposing that Mercury is getting very close to the sun. Now, as Mercury gets closer to the sun, it gets weaker. And so we have that question mark, is it going cazimi? And you'd think that it probably will. Hold on, I got to get something to wet my palate. Okay, so obviously we're within about a degree for Mercury. Mercury represents your thoughts and mind and logic. Mercury has already been in detriment with Sagittarius, which means it's increased its weakness. It's weak to think about. Things confuse you easily. And as Mercury is still in Sagittarius and heading towards closer and closer to the sun, gets weaker and weaker and weaker from an already weak position. So I think that it's going to blow the mind of every citizen is commensurate with what's happening with your mental aptitude in Mercury and the sun on that day. And also the next day, 18th and 19th is a mind-blowing day. So that's explaining that there. Now the moon has progressed on, so it looks like there's less squares here, but Mars still has added another square, so square to all three, and Uranus is square to two of them. And so pressure and conflict. This is also protesting. People are protesting. The protesting is coming from a couple things. Well, the Mars warrior standpoint wants to fight for something. You've got Saturn, which is the status quo and doesn't like to change, is square with Uranus. And by the way, as you can see, Black Moon Lilith getting closer to Uranus. Black Moon Lilith could be the female version of Uranus. They're quite a bit different characters. One, Black Moon being female, Uranus being male. Uranus being an actual planet, Black Moon Lilith just a position in the sky based on some calculations, but she's known to be the untamed fire maker, so fire woman, and there's no telling what she's going to do. She's very disruptive, but Uranus is also very disruptive. But it's interesting how the part of fortune, which is another piece of sky based on a calculation of between the moon and the sun, is also there in the mix. So you've got fire woman, untamed, Uranus change maker, and part of fortune, which means it might be very fortunate to change. It might be very fortunate to just kind of relax and watch the changes happen. And it might be very disruptive. All right, so let's answer this question. cazimi And as you can see, this is on Saturday, the 19th, as we head into Saturday, when Mercury gets within 17 minutes of the sun. That's said to be cazimi. But here's the gig. It's longitude and latitude. So this whole zodiac represents just the latitude portion. It doesn't look at longitude. Down here in the corner, I know it's very hard to see. Let me zoom in. You can see, and we're going to actually use this later. This gives us a little bit of idea for the longitude. This means that the sun is at the same longitude as Pluto. Venus is at the same longitude of Jupiter. And there's a whole separate ideas of alignments commensurate with if they're parallel or on the opposite side. So if you've got the equatorial plane and you've got one at a certain position above and the other planet is on a equal and opposite, it's the contraparallel, or the I forget what the actual word is. Maybe one of you knows, but that's important too. Let me zoom back. That's best we're going to do. But anyway, you can see on that list that Mercury and Sun were not parallel, which means they're not cazimi within 17 minutes in terms of longitude. They're not in longitude close enough. So what that means is that Mercury just gets closer and closer to the Sun, doesn't get within cazimi, which is a big, powerful strength to the mind, but instead just gets weaker and weaker in Sagittarius, where Mercury is already weak. And I think I reversed the combust discussion last video or 2 videos ago. I don't know for sure. So if I confused you, it's Mercury is in detriment in Sagittarius and then getting weaker and weaker as you get closer to the sun, to the point of cazimi, which is not happening this week. And then you get like this brilliant period of insight and whatnot. Okay. And then the moon's got another square. Just note that on the 19th, your relationships are adjusting to change. Okay, that's a no-brainer. Anytime there's disruption and you're anxious or you're adapting to the changes, then that automatically means that the relationships is going to adapt. So that all makes sense. Now we get into the Christmas star. We already talked about Saturn and Jupiter going into Aquarius. Some people call this the Christmas star, and they're proposing that the last time this happened, or one of the times that this happened, could be this brilliant star out in the sky. Is really 2 of them together, and they hypothesize that it could have been the Bethlehem star and the stars at the Magi, which I believe are astrologers, are heading straight to they're navigating based on this Christmas star. But it is special because the Saturn and Jupiter don't get this close for hundreds of years. They're getting close in terms of latitude, which is depicted here, but also longitude. They're parallel. They're in the same piece of sky. And I don't know if you've seen these pictures yet, but they're very magical. It's an opportunity to get your telescopes out and really zoom in and look at these 2 planets together. Jupiter being the brighter of the 2, but Saturn having those rings, and just gorgeous pictures, abundant. But they're not going to be in Aquarius. We're going to cover this in the solution. When you go out in the night sky, don't be expecting to see it inside of the constellation Aquarius. This is the tropical, and we're going to cover where it is later. But for now, conceptually, energetically, it's in the tropical Aquarius, which means that this bundle of positive, optimistic, security, safety, and status quo is morphing towards more freedom, eccentricism, uniqueness, education, knowledge, dissemination, disclosure, no more secrets, that whole archetype, Aquarius archetype, and knowledge is part of that. So you can see, I got this little quote here. According to the Adler Planetarium, planets can be seen as early as December 16th and 17th, but the real show takes place the evenings of the 20th and the 22nd. I'm considering this the main energy slide. This is the slide of the week. This is the 20th. Now, obviously, on the 21st is significant in terms of the winter solstice, but nonetheless, these two planets just heading into Aquarius is huge. And then they'll actually be conjunct on the 21st. But well, let me read the rest of this, because I have this for a reason. Throughout the first half of December 2020, you'll be able to see these two planets appearing to draw closer each night. The planetarium's website reads, the best time to see them is about an hour after your local sunset time. At Chicago's latitude, look to the southwest to see two close objects fairly low in the sky. The brighter one is Jupiter. The dimmer one is Saturn. Then on the 21st, and I'll tell you, I'll show you a picture of where to look in the sky here in a second, and when we get into the solution, because we'll talk about the sidereal zodiac. All right, but for now, we're talking energy. Monday the 21st, this is where they are exactly at the same latitude and very close on longitude. So this would be a very great day to find them. Hopefully there's no clouds in the sky and you can get snap some great pictures. And if you do, please share or please link me. I want to see those. I'm fascinated with these pictures. Now, look at this. On this day, you have a couple of sextiles. That's just the moon whipping around here. So it's a quick opportunity for our positive transformation of the way things have always been. There's a rare opportunity for your emotions to read into that or to create, if you will, in a Pisces format. Pisces is mystical, transpersonal, transcendent, oneness. So these emotions, and very emotional, but these emotions and mysticism is an opportunity into the positive transformation of the way things have always been. Mars still has 3 squares, so very contentious, lots of protests still. Uranus and Black Moon Lilith right together. There's 2 squares there, which really means there's 4 squares, but also there's 4 trines here. And so what this means, this is a new energy developing. Now it's easy energy. It's easy to change your mind. That's the Mercury. It's easy to change your identity. And in Capricorn, it's sort of like, what hill do I need to climb? It's what goals. It's your self goals is the sun in Capricorn. What am I going to achieve? Achievement is Capricorn. Thinking, your goal-oriented thoughts, easy to change your mind. All right. So be prepared for that. And that's another indicator that it might just be oversaturated this week with chaos. Maybe not in the news per se, but I think there's probably a lot of chaos in the news too. But in the sky, energetically, there's just so much happening. It's just better to just sit back and observe. That's kind of where we're at. Let me continue. The Christmas star is still there, still visible, still holding hands together, still squared, still have the easy energy to change your mind and your identity. And then on Wednesday, not much different. Everything I just said, similar. So that's the 23rd. We're getting real close to Christmas and people still protesting, emotionally charged this time because the moon is getting right there with Mars. So as we get closer to Christmas, it's probably not the feeling of that peace that pervades everything, even though it's supposed to be a very peaceful time. Did I mention winter solstice? That's the 21st. And A rare opportunity on the 21st with your mystical emotions. So you can peer into the future of this transformation possibly. It's one application. You can dream about it as well, predictively. All right, folks, let's get into the I-Ching. Why does the I-Ching is telling us this week that the influence is patience? Why? Well, let me read this. A fisherman can cast the line, but still can only wait for the fish to bite. What does that sound? Your catch will come in its own good time. You cannot make it come any sooner, neither by working, nor by planning, nor by wishing. This to me sounds like the traps. There's more traps that have been laid, and they're still trapping the bad guys and gals. The bad gals and guys. Now, in I-Ching, you have lines, and they start from the bottom, go up. So their change lines are 1, 2, 4, and 5. So I've got to read all these. They're very important. Troubling events may be looming. Oh, gee, do you think? Troubling events may be looming, causing some apprehension. Man, I'm having a hard time reading today. Is Mercury getting closer to the sun? Avoid reacting prematurely. Keep your life in order. Do not try to alter the path that has been set for you at this time. Rest assured that you are headed in the right direction. So what it's saying is you kind of just got to trust the process. Where have you heard that before? Line 2. Strife can easily develop now. That's also indicated in the astrology. Big time. You may have to tolerate gossip, but in the end, if you remain calm and magnanimous, you will come out well. Things will resolve themselves. Line 5. When the storm hits, it can behoove you to enjoy a glass of wine. Now, these aren't my words. I've got those linked down below if you're interested in seeing those hexagrams yourself. But I find it very interesting that when the storm hits, it doesn't say if the storm hits, it says when. And so maybe the storm is here, like people are saying, and you just don't see quite as much of it, particularly if you're in the mass media and watching all that news. And I'm not so keen on offering wine and alcohol as your go-to, but you get the idea here. The idea is recharge your batteries by having fun. If you have too much wine, that's not recharging your batteries. I'm all good with moderation, so have at it, but don't escape on it. Having fun rather than further draining them with worry. Worry is going to be your biggest enemy this week. And it's probably going to be in your face too. So you're going to have to just observe. That's called mindfulness. Mindfully observing the shock and awe. Line 6. You may be falling into an abyss. This is a time of difficulty. That too is indicated in the astrology. Remain cautious and alert. Help will be arriving from some unknown corner. Keep an open mind. Keep an open mind. There's our mindfulness. Good fortune awaits you. All right, folks, here's the solution. But first, we got to hear from our sponsor. All right, now change of camera. And I should have done this during the break, but I didn't. Here's our solution slide. Wait, no. Hold on. I haven't even done the solution I-Ching. All right, so for new folks, we are doing the triangulation for the solution, and I only have 15 minutes, so I got to speed this up. Hexagram 52, when you put those change lines in that we talked about, you get mountain over mountain. It's keeping still because mountains do move with the plates underneath and everything, but we're talking thousands of years. So overall, mountains don't move. They just stay there. And so this hexagram reading is regular periods of rest are an important aspect of personal development and evolution. The most relaxed person may not be the one who sleeps 12 hours a day, but the one who knows how to grab a nap while cruising at 600 miles an hour at 35,000 feet. I don't know why they chose that metaphor, but basically it's a fast-paced life, and the best this week are going to be those who know how to take breaks, take a nap, recharge. You know how incredibly similar these hexagrams are. The other one was patience. This one's keeping still. So it's about very just mindfulness, allowing things to take place and not getting reactory. There's no reaction this week, or try not to, or at least notice your reaction. How about that? Treat your vitality as if it were a candle in the wind. Protect it as though it was the only light in the dark forest in a moonless night. Avoid external conditions. That might mean getting off of social media, certainly turning off the TV. Don't expose yourself to too many movies, but relax and recharge in other ways. Avoid external conditions that threaten to snuff out this precious flame. And your biggest enemy is going to be anxiety and worry, okay, and fear. Be careful not to suffocate your light with your ambitions and worries. Call time out, relax, take your shoes off, and sit a spell. Let go of thinking. Meditate on just being. All right, that's according to the I-Ching. Now let's get into the calculator. We take, remember I told you the 20th. This is the picture of the 20th. No, this is the 21st. This is winter solstice. They're at the same latitude and longitude, very close together. And therefore they are in the 60th hexagram in the Rave Mandala. And when you go out to the night sky or any day sky, whatever, you are going to see these two hand in hand, Saturn and Jupiter, in Sagittarius. The outer ring here is the constellation, and they're the representative of the size of the constellation. Sagittarius being one of the bigger constellations out there. That's a full 2 zodiac signs in front of Aquarius. Aquarius, remember, is where the tropical is where the Jupiter and Saturn are in the tropical zodiac. This is the influence. This is the solution. Sagittarius will be part of our solution in our triangulation process. All right. And I also showed, here's the depiction as I promised. Let me zoom in here. This is the app called Star Walk 2, and I got it on my phone. It's free. I've got an Android. I don't know about iPhone, but you can go, you point this thing over the eastern horizon. In this case, it was about 10:30 in the morning, and you can see it gives you the layout of the zodiac sign or the constellation, and then you can see Jupiter and Saturn at the very tail end, no pun intended, tail end of Sagittarius. So cool, right? It'll help you locate these planets. So I thought I'd share that because this is the Christmas star. It's the Star of Bethlehem. And then we get into the Rave Mandala, so we have to read that. And it says, this is the energy of limitation itself. This gate is the pulsing pressure to mutate. So in terms of the collective, the knowing circuit is in the experiential field where mutations can develop. So something is afoot, something is happening there, but it hasn't been manifest yet. You can feel the vibe. Remember last week was the shift? Did all of you feel it? Or did you kind of notice that there's a sort of a break and the new cycle is beginning? And that's what this is inferring. It says the mystery of mutation. The mystery of music, as Miles Davis, the jazz composer, noted, is in the space between the notes. It is in the space that mutation takes place. So we're in that space. That's what this hexagram 60s is showing you, and it's being pushed forth, propulsion by the energy of the Saturn and Jupiter going into a new sign. All right. Now, what I have also is a little bit more links here. This is I found interesting, which is the electoral process. You can read this. The first time since 1887 that this has happened. Go ahead and read this. Pause it if you need to. The election will be settled by the Electoral Count Act of 1887. I thought that was incredible. Now, if you are worried about this election, I highly recommend you watch this video. He predicted everything, so at least so far, and he predicts a timeline of how this thing will go down. That link is down below. I'll put that down below, and I think it's the first link, number 1. So check that out. All right, let's get to the solution slide. This is what you've all been waiting for. Shock and awe is what the Dreambot's been saying. It's the astrology of it all. I'm not necessarily saying that it's going to be out here, but it could also be just the chaos of energy, the swirl of energy that causes you to just go, you know what? I don't care, or I just surrender. I'm just overwhelmed. It could be one or the other, or it could be both. But that's the influence. Then here's the solution. We had I-Ching 52, keeping still. And I got 8 minutes, so I got to really hurry. Turn off the news and protect your inner candle. That's remember the 2 mountains, mountain over mountain? It's protect your inner candle. Keep the fire lit with rest and relaxation. Take a hint from the commander-in-chief. Oh, I'm going to talk about that. Hold on. Rave Mandala 60, the gate of acceptance. Acceptance and awareness of the space between the pulses. That change and mutation is happening in this space. So even if we don't see it, you should be able to feel it. Should be able to intuit it, all right? And then the Sidereal Sagittarius is part of our solution. This is where the Saturn and Jupiter are going to be in the sidereal sky in the constellation of Sagittarius. So we want to be more expansive. We want to feel and act and behave freely, wise, wide-ranging, optimistic, philosophical. Spirituality is important to Sagittarius. But we want to avoid the downsides of Sag, which is sort of impatience, wants no attachments. That can be problematic, can be confrontational, picky, can be sort of superficial. So anyway, watch out for that. Now, if we triangulate all of these, here's what we got. There's not a lot to be done for most of us, except for if you're directly on those front lines, and you know what I'm talking about, the digital soldiers, or, you know, trying to rectify the voting and the election. But take a lesson from the commander-in-chief. Do you see him seem to be worried? He's out on the golf course. I'm not saying that you need to go golf. I'm saying recharge right now. This is the time to recharge. It sounds probably so odd. It sounded weird to me that shouldn't we be doing something? And that's what that Mars square Pluto is only getting stronger at this time. So that just means that it's a state of confused action. Like, I know I need to be doing something, but I can't, or I don't know what I need to be doing and should be, you know, that kind of a thing. Time of acceptance, where we are. Okay, so accepting where you are and what people are saying. This is important. I want to express this enough, is that people are going to say weird things. It is hard to pin down the truth in this time frame. I don't know who's lying, who's intentionally lying, who's deceiving, who's secretly having a plan underneath it all and trying to manipulate everybody, who's just trying not to get caught. All this stuff is happening. Try to accept that people are saying these things so that you don't have to be so conflictive of everyone. Let them say what they need to say. It doesn't mean you have to roll over and just surrender to them. It doesn't mean they're right. It just means person XYZ is saying something. So let them say it. This is particularly true for the news, for the people who are getting trapped right now. Let them say it. Let them get trapped. And then and then we insert our own valued-based behaviors from there. We can do our thing because we're free. We're Sagittarius this week. We are enacting the most expansive and wise behaviors that are right for us. And so here's our recommendations for those behaviors. Capture the influence of patience. Take deep breaths of beingness. The most important thing in this time is your inner flame. Keep it lit. Reduce, eliminate fear. Find your joy. No apologies. No distractions. Open your mind and let it be free to explore like the best of Sagittarius. Maintain optimism. Locate your Christmas star. Locate the Christmas star. Let that be your shock and awe. Let the star, because this is an ancient pattern that only shows up every few hundred years. So it is special, and it's an energy like no other, especially when we get into Aquarius. Let that be your shock and awe. Explore your innate freedom. Recognize no limitations, even if it's within, even if it's your mind, all right? Overall, be free. But don't ever forget keeping your inner flame lit. Keep it lit. Rest and relaxation. Find your joy. Do all that stuff. I'm not saying ignore everything, but if you need to, if you're getting overwhelmed and with shock and awe, feel free to ignore it. Just get your rest and relaxation. All right? I think that's it. Everybody, I'm proud of all of you for being here at this time in our humanity. And it's going to be a wild ride, folks. So gear up and don't let anything extinguish your flame. We'll see you next week. Thanks, everybody.